Listen up, liberal. I've made a change in my decision. I have now decided to give TikTok another try because this is one of the few places where I can get the attention that I so desperately want. Seriously. This is one of the places where I have the most followings, and a lot of times when I do live streams like this, I get a lot of followers. So it boosts my ego. Let's get it going. Enough about me. There is a massive censorship campaign by TikTok and the people in charge there to censor liberals like myself and people from talking about, the facts about what's happening in our crazy world that's taking place right now. One of the things that's happening is there was this guy named Jeffrey Epstein. So again, this is purely for educational purposes. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. I have to say that for the tectonic plates, because if I don't, we're going to have an earthquake of disinformation. So I'm saying this because of the censorship campaign against TikTok, by TikTok rather. I have to make sure that I am saying this over and over. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. So, this guy named Jeffrey Epstein had, let's say, an island. Wasn't exactly Peter Pan, but he did have a bunch of lost boys. That's our Epstein. That's him for you. So, again, this is for educational purposes only. This is my opinion. It is your job to do your own research. So, with that said, these ladies that have come forward are absolute freaking sheroes. I mean, the pure brass on these ladies to be able to come forward in face of everything that they've seen that happens to victims of situations like this. For them to come forward is so brave, and we have to do everything in our power to support them, to spread their narrative, and to ensure that their message is being heard and that they are not being silenced. And when they are attacked, an attack on them needs to be an attack on all of us, because the only way we will stop these kind of island cabals that keep occurring among the elites is to support these women. That is just what we have to do. We have to be there. We have to support them. Now, this was quoted in the BBC. Let me see. So if you don't know, for background, there was a press conference yesterday. What's today? Thursday the 4th. So this was Wednesday the 3rd. So these ladies had a press conference because certain people currently in a house that is white are refusing to release files on the perpetrators of these crimes that are heavily documented, and the public has an absolute right to this information. We should know who these elitist pedos are, these PDF files, and we should be able to name them and shame them and keep them away from polite society. That's my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. So, they held a press conference in hopes of pressuring, or at least continuing the media cycle to get these files released from the Department of Justice. That is their goal, which I fully support, and which the people on the right wing of the aisle used to support. I mean, remember, this is what they ran on, right? They ran on releasing these files. They ran on naming who these PDF files are, because we should know. Sidebar on this, I've said this many times. I do not believe that Bill Clinton or other prominent Democrats are in these files. I don't. I just don't. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes. It is your job to do your own research. I don't believe that there are prominent Democrats in these files, because if there were, you can bet that would have leaked by now. I mean, they have tried everything under the sun to change the narrative. The only thing they could do different is if someone like faked their death. The IV patches, and he disappeared for a couple of days. Anyway, again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So, Now I lost my train of thought. It is just amazing what these women are doing. Oh, yeah, Democrat. I don't believe there are any in the files because, again, they have done everything to distract from this issue, and it's not working. It is still coming up. We are still driving this narrative, and we should. And we should be pressuring our leaders in the Democratic Party to be bringing this up over and over and over, because this is an immensely huge, not only is it a moral issue and shows whether or not you have the compass needed to lead this country and the values needed to make it better. It also shows that this is a huge wedge issue politically in the right wing, and it is an amazing opportunity to drive them apart, to disillusion some of them, and maybe, possibly even get them to stop drinking the friggin' Kool-Aid. Again, this is for educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. So, they held a press conference. With that said, here's what they're saying. Quote, "We will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world," she said. "It will be done by survivors and for survivors." This is Lisa Phillips, again, one of the victims. And this is perfect. That's exactly what they should be doing. If we're not going to get the list that was originally compiled by investigators, we should hear directly from the victims themselves. We should be hearing who these people are. We should know where they work, and we should know what they look like, and we should do everything in our power to make sure they are no longer welcome in polite society. And I mean do everything in our power to make sure they are not welcome in polite society. Some people will say, oh, what do you mean by that? That's too far. Well, guess what? These people are PDF files. They deserve nothing but the worst. They inherited their wealth, their money, and they used it to abuse little children. There's no excuse for that, and they should be penalized to the fullest extent of the law. And again, if the Democrats have any sense, they will also be compiling an enemies list, and they will be going after these people once they are in charge. But they're Democrats, so we'll see if that lads up. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. So, brave on this lady for coming forward. Ms. Phillips urged the U.S. Department of Justice to release all the documents and information it has from the investigation, adding that many victims were afraid of repercussions if they went public with names themselves. Now, here's something very important. A lawyer for the accusers said that they were scared of being sued or attacked because, quote, nobody protected them the first time, end quote. So that's crucial, because what happens is these victims come forward, and then, of course, corporate media will love them up until the story is no longer in the news cycle, and then they ditch them and move on. So it is our job to support these victims, and yes, that includes GoFundMe campaigns. Yes, that includes whatever social media support. If they post something they're having a hard time, if they make any kind of a post, we should be on there supporting them, liking that shit, resharing it. And most importantly, once this list of Epstein associates is released, get that everywhere. Post it on your Instagram. Post it on your stories. Reshare it here on TikTok. Do everything we can to support these women. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. And we do see this. This is the playbook that when victims come forward, they're slandered in the media. They are discredited. They are attacked physically, verbally, and online. They are cyberbullied. They are stalked. They are harassed. And then, of course, there is the court of law where they are sued for all kinds of things. Most of the time, the lawsuits are complete and utter bullshit, and they're mere slap suits, which are lawsuits brought by the wealthy and the powerful, the elites, so that they were able to silence any voices. I know, because that's happened to me. When I went forward speaking about my health insurance company, rather than make the very small fixes that were needed in my policy plan, they instead went and came after me legally to try and silence me. Now, there's not much more I can say on that yet, but again, this is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. These are my opinions. Marinda Lacerda, speaking publicly for the first time, so this is one of the first public appearances for this victim, said she worked for Epstein from the age of 14 until she was 17 when the disgraced financier determined she was too old. Think about that for a minute. When she was 17, she was declared to be too old. I mean, if she's 17 and too old, what hope do women in their 40s have in Hollywood, you know? So again, this is my opinion. It's for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. It's terrible that... I mean, it's good that she was no longer being targeted, of course, but she still went through, 3 years of horrific abuse at the hands of these people, and she got no justice for it. Many of the Epstein accusers, again, this was in Florida, when they went forward, there was a prosecution, and then Epstein fled to a certain country overseas where there is definitely a happening to hide from accountability, in which point his lawyers and lawyers here in America came with a barely even a slap on the wrist deal. And then he was able to come back to the States, and he was able to leave jail to go back into town and continue his offenses. These are actual facts here. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. But these are widely reported facts that he was able to leave jail, go into town to continue doing whatever it was he was doing, and then come back. That is a fact as reported in the media. But this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. Do your own research. I mean, 3 years of abuse, and she is just now coming forward. This must have been in, the 2000s? Doesn't show her age here, so I don't know when this took place, but 3 years of abuse, and she watched this guy skate for nearly 2 decades, right? Because Epstein in 2020, was it right? 2020, 2019? So 3 years she had to deal with that abuse, knowing that her abusers, and not just Epstein, but all the other abusers within his system, which are now on this list by these ladies, and she had to watch all of that. That's fucking awful. Some people, Republicans, cringe and have to cover their eyes watching movies with 2 gay people kissing. Do you think they could have ever endured this kind of trauma? The true snowflakes... Yep, there, I'm taken down. Oh, I didn't get taken down. Okay. Wow, I didn't get taken down. I thought my phone must have just froze. The true snowflakes are on the right. They could never have dealt with the kind of abuse and torture and horrors that these women went through. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. Quote, I was one of dozens of girls that I personally know who were forced into Jeffrey's mansion in New York City when we were just kids. I've done a fair amount of coverage on this stuff, and I've been reading up on it. And there's just, when something new happens, it's just immediate, immediate vomit reflex. There needs to be a term for that. When you see something so disgusting that right-wing PDF files do, just the vomit reflex, a vomit comment. I had a vomit comment reaction. I don't know. Quote, a friend of mine in the neighborhood told me that I could make $300 to give another guy a massage, Lacerda said. Quote, while becoming visibly emotional. It went from a dream job to the worst nightmare. Liz Stein, who sued Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, and who now works as a survivor, mentor, and policy advisor, told the BBC that she spoke at the Capitol rally to humanize survivors because she was tired of them being ignored. It's really important for us, quote, it's really important for us all to remember that this is a crime. It's a crime of sex trafficking. This isn't a political issue, but it's being politicized because of the people involved, Ms. Stein said. Again, this is for educational purposes. These are my opinions. It is your job to do your own research. And she's right. She's 100% correct. This should not be a political issue. There are crimes that take place that should transcend politics, nationalism, religious zealotry, for God's sakes. And yet it can't. Look at the church, right? One of the biggest PDF file grooming empires on the planet and they actually actively work to cover it up and help the abusers, not the victims. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. And these ladies had to suffer through all of this for decades. And even today, they are still barely getting their justice. And we have Democrats right now barely refusing to even acknowledge that this is an issue. You still got Hakeem Jeffries. You still got Boomer Schumer. And so many other leadership. The number 2 whip in the House, I can't remember her name, but she was showing a bit of promise from coming out of the woodworks and saying there is in a certain country in the Middle East against Palestinians. And yet they're not talking about this. If you're not talking about this, you're not actually looking for justice. You're not actually looking to enforce rule of law. You're allowing these perpetrators, these PDF files, these disgusting, bottom-of-the-barrel, dog shit in the crack of your shoe human beings to continue living their lives, and we should not be tolerating that. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. Someone said Biden sat on it for 4 years, and that's how bad the Democrats are at politics. And that's also how you know that the Democrats are not going to change. The party as it stands must be burned to the ground, and this needs to be the issue. There are some legal perspectives on it, because during that 4 years, Ghislaine Maxwell was under prosecution, so it would have tainted the jury pool, it would have been bias against the system, blah, 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 blah. So, in theory, that's why Biden didn't release those things. I don't buy it, sorry. They didn't even have to release those files. They could have released every bit of other public information that's out there. They could have used that in the debates. They could have used that on the campaign trail, but they chose not to. This is how you know Democrats could never rig an election, because they can't even win one using bare-knuckle boxing. Again, this is my opinion. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. If Trump was on there, the DNC would have leaked it. I agree. I absolutely agree. And frankly, that's what should have happened. That is what should have happened. We are in a war for the survival of this country, and the Democrats are treating like it's tea time. All right, I'm going to get back to it again. This is educational purposes only. These are my opinions. It's your job to do your own research. So let's get back to it here. Annie Farmer, 46, said at the rally she was taken to New Mexico at age 16 to spend a weekend with Epstein. Schmepstein. Her sister was also flown there and reported the abuse, she said, but nothing was done. So here's something. We need to track this down, right? Who were the authorities in New Mexico when this woman was being abused? Who covered for these PDF files? We need to find out who the people in New Mexico were in charge at this time of Annie Farmer, who's 46 now. Let's do some math here. So she's... Hold on, math is not my strongest subject. So in 2025, she's 46. So 46 minus, she said she was 16 at the time, so that was 30 years ago. 2025 minus 30, 1995, right? Yeah, 1995. So we need to find out who those authorities were in New Mexico in 1995. We should name them, we should shame them, and if they are in positions of power, they should be primaried, and if they are in positions in the private world, they should never know a moment's peace, and they should never have a non-boogied burger ever again. Spit in their fucking soup. Pardon my French. Again, these are my opinions. This is for educational purposes only. It is your job to do your own research. Quote, we still do not know why that report wasn't properly investigated or why Schmapstein and his associates were allowed to harm hundreds, if not thousands of other girls and young women. And she is absolutely correct. And that is, again, why it is so important that we find out who these people were in New Mexico covering for these PDF files. Because if they did it then, they'll do it now. And most likely, they still are. That's why these people are a threat and a danger to us, and frankly, people, it's time to start thinking about doing stuff yourself to protect your community, your neighbors, your family, and your friends. Again, this is my opinion. These are for educational purposes only. Do your own research. Yada, yada. Shantae Davies addressed a question about the relationship between... Now, this is a key point in the article. Shantae Davies addressed a question about the relationship between Frump and Schmapstein, saying that sex offenders quote, biggest brag forever was that he was very good friends with Ronald Brump. He had a framed picture of him on his desk with the two of them, she said. So this, now here's another key point. So this was already public information, right? I mean, all of this stuff was in the public domain, again, which the Democrats never used. All the pictures, all the videos, all the quotes between Frump and Schmapstein, and the Democrats never used it. They are just bad at politics, and we need to get rid of the old guard and bring in people that are not going to allow this kind of behavior to go undiscussed. Again, this is my opinion. It's for educational purposes only. Do your own research, anyway. Now, this is an important thing here. The article cites, but during an NBC panel discussion with a group of survivors on Tuesday, none of the women said they ever saw or heard Trump doing anything inappropriate relating to Epstein. So this is important for several factors. One, it doesn't say if it's this panel of survivors. I'm a little unclear on who the survivors were that participated in this panel. Let me see. Yeah, it doesn't show their... I don't recognize these ladies. Is she in one of the other pictures? That might be her. Maybe? No, I don't think that's her. So it's very unclear who this panel was, who was on this panel with NBC, right? So that's one, because I'm not clear if it's any of these specific ladies. Two is that there are plenty of victims of Schmapstein and Frump. And we know for a fact, again, that Frump was sued in 2016 by a Jane Doe alleging that she was raped by Frump and Schmapstein at Schmapstein's party in, I believe it was in the Trump penthouse. If not, it was in one of Epstein's mansion. I can't remember. Either way, these are my opinions. Do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. So, with that said, so it's unclear. So these victims may not have been the ones that ever ended up palling around with Schmapstein and Frump. Very possible that was a different group of victims. And so that's why this kind of thing, that's why it could have been that they would say that, right? And just the fact that we know that, again, Frump has said publicly that he liked Epstein because they both liked women on the younger side. Who says that? That is the creep at a bar, deep in his drinks, and someone says something like that and he gets out, like kicked out of the bar, because that's just a creepy thing to say. Frump also admitted to walking in to underage women during his teenage beauty pageants. Excuse me, they were not women, they were children. To walking into his underage beauty pageants when they were fully nude. He's admitted this, right? I believe it was topless, excuse me. Again, this is for educational purposes only. Do your own research. These are my opinions. Blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, they released the DOJ released a bunch of files related to Schmapstein, which are just a reprint of other stuff. And the transcripts that they had with Ghislaine Maxwell were heavily redacted, because of course they were. And keep in mind, Maxwell has a history of lying. She was actually charged with perjury. That was one of the reasons she got locked up, was because she was a liar. And she also, so she said that Frump did nothing wrong. Guess what? She also said Schmapstein did nothing wrong. So for these MAGA morons to take her word as gospel when she said the same thing about Schmapstein, and yet they're fighting for Schmapstein, fighting against Schmapstein, but not against Frump, it just shows they have no interest in this actual topic. It is pure politics for them. They are the worst kind of human beings, but we already knew that. So that's one story here. And then, of course, this is interesting. This is reported by USA Today. Again, these are my opinions. Do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. They were during the speech, they were interrupted by a flyover. Let me get to the point in the story. So, U.S. Capitol Police issued an alert saying that approximately 11 a.m., 4 F-35 Lightning IIs and 4 F-16 Fighting Falcon aircraft would be conducting an authorized flight near the U.S. Capitol complex. Where does it say the reason? Hold on. Oh, yeah, here it is. So supposedly, the White House said the fighter jets were participating in maneuvers to honor a fallen Polish army pilot killed recently in training exercise and to celebrate the special relationship between our two countries. When was the last time a U.S. Army pilot got this kind of treatment? I mean, they had this many planes flying over for a Polish army pilot? Sorry, we do not have the kind of close ties with Poland that we do with, say, England or France or Canada. We just don't. And again, our troops don't even get this kind of treatment. Not that they should. It is pomp and circumstances that is purely nationalistic and has huge authoritarian, just like massive authoritarian vibes. That said, I don't buy this. It's total BS, and we know they said specifically that it was came from Trump himself. Where does it say it here? Let's see. Said in several X posts. Capitol Police aircraft maintain full yada yada. Well, I can't find it, but it did say specifically that it was authorized by the White House, and of course it came over right in the middle of the conference, and these ladies actually had to stop and pause for a minute to wait for the aircraft to go by. And of course it's a freaky experience. Those airplanes are loud. They're very friggin' loud. So it's not a coincidence. Again, these are my opinions. This is for educational purposes only. Do your own research, but there is no way that this timing is not intentional. So the last thing I want to cover is fake-ass Nancy Mace. This evil frickin' cauldron brewing witch. She is evil. So she is a complete attention hog, makes everything about herself. So when these victims were behind closed doors giving testimony before Congress, she leaves in tears. Bitch, if these victims were able to sit through all of that and discount and cover everything that was horrible that happened to them when they were children, you can sit your lazy, welfare-loving Republican ass down and listen. And she pulled the whole, oh, but I'm a victim, and it was just too much for me to hear. Ah! Give me a fucking break, lady. You supported the biggest rapist that's currently in the White House right now. And you want to play the victim card when actual victims are talking about how you're Fuhrer and leader and supreme chief of everything that you have fucking thought about is up in the White House right now, after all the shit that he's done, being best friends with Epstein. You don't get to play victim. Don't make everything about you, you fucking broomstick riding hag. It's despicable what she did. Again, these are my opinions. This is for educational purposes. Do your own research. I'm fed up with this kind of crap, and the rest of us should. And we shouldn't let her hide behind her foe. Oh, but I'm also a victim crap. Well, if you were a victim, you would actually fight for other victims, not run from it under closed doors hearing when they're talking all about the horrific things they went through because of your party. Your party, which was Alex Acosta, which was the Attorney General, I believe, in Florida at the time, that gave Epstein the sweetheart deal, and that Trump rewarded with a secretary position in the Labor Department when he was in charge the first time. That was your party. Your party did that. So don't let this fake Nancy Mace hijack the narrative and take away from what these victims went through, all so that she can upstand her own ego. All right, that's enough. So what am I missing? So a bunch of right-wing fake news liars in here. See, here's the other thing. It's really telling that, again, the right-wing ran on the Epstein files, and now they're in here saying that everything that's being reported on this is lies. The accusers are lying. Everything is a lie. Everything is a lie except for their dear leader, who tells them that the sky is blue at 12 midnight. Go on, keep believing that. It's going to work out great for you. How's your tariffs, by the way? They doing good? How's your budget? Still sucking? Yeah, some right-wing moron here. Trump wasn't on the island, yada, yada, yada. Trump used Epstein's plane during the 2024 campaign. And he was best friends with Epstein. But sure, he didn't go to the island. Nothing untoward happened. You're right. Here. Good boy. Good boy. Do you feel better, little guy? Again, these are my opinions. These are for educational purposes only. Let's see. Yeah, just a bunch of mega morons. Uh, 999 says, preach. Thank you so much, good sir. Thank you, 999. So again, there's a lot of MAGA morons in here, and keep in mind that when these people that are in this chat right now are defending Trump, keep in mind that these are the folks that are the exact kind of PDF files that we're talking about, and make sure you know who they are, because they might be living next to you. And if they do, you know what to do to take care of them.